All right, let's try this again. Hopefully this works, because if it doesn't work, I don't have another solution. All right. Will banning phones fix schools? After a decade of falling reading scores, Sweden is banning phones in schools, even some laptop use in classes. Swedish Parliament's Education Committee said, "We're rolling the screens back because we believe that books and more traditional ways of learning are better for kids." It's great to see a country take education seriously and go back to good old-fashioned values. This is sarcasm. I'm doing sarcasm. Look, before we all jump to conclusions and throw all the phones into a giant pyre, can we for just like 2 seconds look at what actual educators doing actual research say about screens and reading? It would be very easy for me to cherry pick a few studies that have very small positive effects of reading comprehension when reading on paper. There are some, I read them for this. The problem is that every single time they pointed out factors like poor digital reading habits, different effects on different populations, and diminishing effects over time. There are so many caveats in the literature that when researchers from Finland, and yes, I did choose research specifically from the University of Jyväskylä because their findings are more likely to be relevant in this cultural context. When they conducted a literature review of 5 databases from 2018 to 2024, including 6 meta-analyses and 11 empirical studies, they found that based on the results, reading from the screen may impair reading comprehension. For some, but at the same time, it may also improve it for others. They even said it would not be appropriate for those students for whom reading on a screen is a better option in terms of reading comprehension to go back to reading only from books. Unfortunately, for people looking for easy fixes to the literacy crisis, individual differences in students were a much larger indicator of reading comprehension than the medium that they read in. Wind is bad. Wind is the most overwhelming thing that's ever happened. Disability justice alert! Welcome to my new segment, Disability Justice. It's literally everywhere. When a kid and their family finally manage to make it all the way through diagnosis and getting into the official accommodation process, they get something called an IEP, an Individualized Education Program. An IEP is a legally binding blueprint that guarantees free educational supports. These can be specialized instruction, speech therapy, occupational therapy, extra time, sensory breaks, and assistive technology, all to accomplish specific goals. Goals like, say, mastering reading comprehension. I wonder if a system designed for disabled people could help anybody else. I wonder if IEPs could be the curb cut effect, but for education. The problem is that we can't go back. The researchers laid it out plainly. It's not realistic to return to reading only on paper. We need to be able to read on screens. The concept of literacy should be reevaluated to cover different media. Education providers should include teaching reading strategies for both paper and screen. Raise your hand if you were ever explicitly taught how to read on a handheld screen. A phone, a tablet, an e-reader, anything. And I am not talking about a tutorial written by the company who sold you the device. I mean a teacher, a librarian, a friend, a parent sat you down and showed you how eye movement patterns and skimming affect reading comprehension on a screen. Or maybe someone explicitly taught you reading problem-solving skills like text mapping and reorganization, both of which have been shown to exert significant positive impacts when reading on a screen. No, you have no idea what I'm talking about? Neither do most undergrads. In a recent piece in Futurism, a professor said, modeling note-taking in a credit-bearing rhetoric course is using a college slot to teach a middle school skill. If that's true, then middle school failed me, because I had to teach myself to take notes. That's what a video essay is. It's me reading a bunch of papers, taking notes, and organizing them into a script. I read on a screen to make these videos. And if you're trying to peep the technique, I start with 3 tabs. 1 tab for Google Scholar, 1 for the San Francisco Public Library articles database, and 1 for a messy pile document where I can copy and paste things I want to remember and quote and reference, all on my phone. Apparently, this is not a skill we are explicitly teaching people how to do. Here's the hottest take I could possibly take about this. Reading declines have nothing to do with screens. We don't teach people to read. We especially don't teach people how to read on a screen. Screens are just a scapegoat. Actually, the hottest take I could possibly take about this is probably more like the neoliberal agenda intentionally dismantles public schooling as a public good, with the broader goal of fashioning American society through the rule of corporations and the wealthy, including attempts to channel public money to wealthy individuals via charter schools and privatization. Okay, so what do we do about it? First, if you're a parent stress maxing about trying to teach your kid to read inside of this whole mess, I have hope just for you. We both know I'm not an educator. I am just a feral YouTuber who reads lots of papers and tries to tell you what they say. But you know who is an educator? Dr. Jared Van, PhD in special education. One second. Who over and over again recommends this book, Teach Your Child to Read in 10 Easy Lessons. It's actually really easy to follow. And I found this one for free in a book pile in our neighborhood. Plus, they're like $10 on thrift books. But if you're grown and reading feels like a chore, research says there are 3 pretty clear ways to improve your comprehension. Choosing the right medium for your skill level, doing calibration and deconstruction. Skill level is pretty simple. Beginners learn better with video, but as you gain expertise, reading text is much more effective. This is why multiliteracy is so important. As you transition from beginner to intermediate, you need to be able to also ramp yourself from video to text. Calibration is how accurately a reader judges their own understanding of a text. I made a huge calibration error recently, actually. My brain did dyslexia to a fact, and I understood it in the mirror reverse. I thought it was 90% wrong when it was actually 90% right. So embarrassing. But recognizing the mistake and planning for it to happen again in the future is part of how you develop calibration. Now I use more direct quotes instead of summaries to prevent this kind of mistake in the future. It helps me trust or calibrate my own understanding. And then the third step is deconstruction. In a paper in the Journal on Education Research and Innovation, and yes, this paper was written in Indonesian and translated into English. And yes, I do think that is very cool because finding research outside of English-speaking areas is actually difficult. Support me on Patreon. This study tracked what happens when they instructed students to deconstruct text, to identify authorial intent, the target audience, the semiotic choices, and the underlying power dynamics, and use these skills in a multiliteracy context that included academic journals, statistical databases, and documentary films. Before the intervention, students tended to accept published papers as absolute truth, with students merely paraphrasing information without questioning the methodology, the author's bias, or the socio-cultural context of the publication. But as multiliteracy interventions progressed, a marked shift occurred. The data revealed significant improvements in 4 specific domains of critical thinking, including analytical deconstruction, evaluative judgment, synthesis of multiple perspectives, and metacognitive reflection. That's it. All it took to dramatically increase reading comprehension was to teach people how to actively question what they read, to cross-reference against multiple sources and use multiple media, navigate conflicting information, and integrate divergent viewpoints into a cohesive, balanced argument. Reading was active. We have this problem where we swing in one direction way too fast. Like, say, introducing new technologies to a classroom. We're excited about the possibilities, so we go all in. But then when we see kids' reading scores go down, we hard pendulum swing in the other direction and ban all the screens. Make the children smart again. Surely this time, monocropping the children and standardizing everything will work great. If we can just fit every student into a box that can be shipped off to the next grade or the next school or the next job, surely the labels we choose to put on those boxes, like undergraduate in computer science or 3rd grader, will mean something real and specific and repeatable. You can trust us. The problem is that humans are not standardizable units of literacy and therefore labor. We must treat reading as an active, reflective process each reader uses to navigate the world. And if you want to keep navigating the world with me, support my Patreon. I literally cannot keep this going alone. I am on a mission to find 100 people who would like to support me for $5 a month, and 100% of your support goes to paying for my housing. Plus, you get to tell me what I should make videos about. And if you can't financially support, no worries, you can follow completely for free. Like, comment, subscribe, all my references are up on Patreon. One thing you should know about me, if we're gonna have this whole like parasocial relationship thing, is that I will never let anyone get away with the easy explanation. My autism's version of black or white thinking is thinking that every single thing must have the most possible context in every moment. So do with that what you will. Bye, all.